I'm sure at this point there's at least one of you asking, who is nvRanger? Who is Co? What do they do? And to that I would tell you, none of your damn business. I'm just kidding, it absolutely is your business, and in fact, you are Co. Well, you're Co if you hit that subscribe button. Then you can consider yourself a part of the team. You have a job now. Do you get paid? No, but you do have a job and you aren't required to do anything, so don't worry, you're not an S-word. So what exactly do we do here at nvRanger & Co? Anything it takes to make a quick buck. Anything. We're all here in this virtual wasteland we call the internet, just trying to find a job and get by before Mr. House ends up replacing us all with AI. Speaking of the big guy upstairs, no, not that one. The other guy, yep, yeah, him. Mr. House has been having an issue with his casinos. He believes that many of them, if not all of them, are lying to him about their earnings so that they can pocket the leftover caps. Based on what his employees are turning in, Mr. House is only earning 10 million caps per year. This might sound like a lot to you wasteland peasants, but to him, he thinks something is off. He has hired us at nvRanger & Co. to go in as his undercover inspectors. Our job is to discover what casino makes the most money, which makes the least amount of money, and how do the casinos make their money. Casinos have various tools at their disposal to extract money out of their patrons, and one of the major tools they will use are their gambling-based games. Not all games are equal though. Slot machines are going to be way more effective at sucking money out of people than a blackjack table is, for example, and we can see this within most of the casinos as they often have way more slot machines than they do any other type of game. We don't need to get into all of the specifics of the math. Maybe somebody can remind me and I'll throw that in the description. For now, all you need to know is that slot machines are the most valuable, then craps tables, then roulette tables, and finally, blackjack tables are the least valuable when it comes to gambling. In other words, the more slot machines a casino has, the better, but all of these are going to make money. We also have to consider revenue generated from the hotel rooms, alcohol sales from the bars, and then restaurants as well within some of the casinos. These places don't run on their own though, and they don't run for free, so we had to go ahead and figure out what their electric bill is like. How about the water bill? They have maintenance, food and drink being bought to then be sold, and then of course they have to pay their staff, at least some of them. Many of these categories of revenue and cost, of course, are going to have to take into account how many patrons are in the casino, so we have to go in and do a head count for that. Mr. House requested that I also inspect the Atomic Wrangler so he can get an idea as to what his competition in Freeside looks like. So to begin, I decided I would leave his office and head right into the active war zone that is Freeside. I noticed one of their employees, a staff member who was a street crier, signaling me down the road to head in, and as soon as I got in, to my amazement, I was very uncomfortable. There is a massive room and a big stage, and no one is in here. I'm just being stared at by a bunch of guards who are guarding, I don't know, the dust on the floor and the cigarette butts sitting on the tables that no one's bothered to clean up. I mean, seriously, the Garrett twins are a couple of doormats. It's no wonder they have a bunch of former customers that just decided not to pay. They have all these lazy guards standing around, and maybe if they bothered to clean up a little bit, they might get more than 3 customers at once. Beyond it being an absolute pigsty, and here they have 25 slot machines, 11 of which are broken. As we can see, this place earns the vast majority of its money from its gambling, which is no doubt heavily supplemented by those 14 functional slot machines. They also have 4 rooms available, but they're not going to be as expensive given we're not on the strip, so they're only valued at 40 caps per night. The Atomic Wrangler also has a bar and a restaurant. Is it a bit of a stretch to say that they're a restaurant? I don't know. Is McDonald's a restaurant? You can buy food and sit down, so that's good enough for me. Of course, they are not going to earn as much per customer off of their restaurant or their bar as would, say, the Gourmand and the Ultra-Luxe. Now, we do have a potential legal issue here at the Atomic Wrangler I'm going to have to report, but I did make sure to leave them with one of my cards in case they need a lawyer. You see, they seem to advertise some form of escort service. You can even hear some sound system they seem to have put within their premises to give off the idea that there's moaning going on in some of their rooms. But I assure you, I checked, there is not. As their attorney, I would simply say that the place is haunted, but as the inspector, hearing one of their employees say,
"Hungry? Thirsty? Horny? The Atomic Wrangler has you covered."
that gives off the idea to a potential customer that they can fulfill those wishes, but they can't for at least one of them. The majority of the Atomic Wrangler's expenses are coming from their staff. They have more guards here than they do patrons. Not only is this unsettling and intimidating to walk into as a lone patron and see a bunch of guys just staring at you leaning up against a wall, it's also costing the Garrett twins a lot of money. The staff daily cost is going to be 700 caps, whereas they're only making 876 caps a day off of their gambling. The daily revenue for the Atomic Wrangler comes out to 1,246 caps, so that's really not too bad for an independent small business. The problem comes in when we look at their operational costs, which are 1,164 caps per day. This means that their net profit every day is just a mere 82 caps. I think with some minor adjustments to their business approach, we could really turn the Atomic Wrangler around. First, they need to let go of some of their guards. They have way too many guards that they're paying regularly. They also give these guys room and board. They're expensive. Next up, fire Hadrian. No one wants to listen to that guy. People in Freeside are probably miserable. They don't want to listen to bad jokes. Instead, invest in a couple radios, throw those things up, and turn up Mr. New Vegas' station. Get some ambient music going, and this will help relax people, take them out of the awkwardness and all the guards staring out of them, and just get them using those slot machines, gambling, drinking, having a good time. You don't need entertainment, at least for the time being. This will take 3 staff members off of your payroll. Use that money you're saving plus the other net profits you've been gaining to fix those 11 other slot machines. This will be a great long-term investment. If we can get that done, we get the slot machines fixed, we lower the staff costs. Just from those minor adjustments alone, we take our net profits from 82 caps per day to 891 caps per day. And just to clarify, there are more than 3 patrons being counted for the Atomic Wrangler. It's actually 6 because we do have that Jameson kid who's supposed to be here. And then I also included a couple of Freeside locals because I'm sure people come in and out of the Atomic Wrangler from time to time. Unfortunately, for the time being, the Atomic Wrangler is only earning 82 caps per day. So we're gonna have to head back to the strip to see some real businesses at work. I'm not gonna lie, heading into the Atomic Wrangler as an undercover inspector wasn't too bad because they don't really have anything worth hiding. But heading into the Gomorrah, I'm a bit nervous. If I get caught snooping around the Omertas, they might beat me to death with gabagool, so I gotta be careful. The first thing you'll notice when compared to the Atomic Wrangler is, man, they got games in here. They have tons of slot machines, way more tables to play at. They're making bank off of the gambling scene. Now sure, the Gomorrah is gonna serve you up some cheap booze, cheap rooms, and cheap food, but that's all just to angle you towards their other major earner, their escort service. Now I could get whacked for saying this, so you didn't hear it from me, but I found out on the down low that how the Omertas run their escort service and how they make it incredibly profitable is essentially they offer all of their escorts free chems whenever they start. Load them up, give them whatever they want, having a good time, you're partying, you're working in Vegas. But then, after you're hooked, and only after you're hooked, do they start charging you. The Omertas have made it so they don't have to eat the cost of the chems they are bringing in. The escorts are paying for those and then making money on top of that, so they don't have to pay the escorts their staff salary because that salary is getting funneled right back into their operation. The average employee on the strip is making 50 caps per day. We have 15 escorts within the Gomorrah. That means 750 caps per day is being put right back into chems. Those chems are essentially enslaving their escorts, and they also increase the usage of escorts from their patrons. This is a terrible situation. I'm not sure how Mr. House will feel about it, but we'll definitely have to mention it to him. This is an actual aspect of the game's narrative I'm pulling from. So even though we hear about the Strip being some oasis in the Mojave wasteland, it's some safe haven from all the dangers out there, we can see that it's quite dangerous itself and has quite a dark underbelly. Tell me with a straight face that you would rather be an employee of the Omertas rather than being a simple Brahmin herder out in Good Springs. It begs the question as to whether or not the Strip is all that great, or for that matter, all that different from the rest of the wasteland. Don't tell Mr. House I said that, but what you can tell him is the majority of the operational costs for the Gomorrah are once again going into the staff. This is very similar to the Atomic Wrangler, but the difference is the Gomorrah can actually afford their staff. It just makes sense for these larger casinos to need a lot more people to run them and run them smoothly. And what we'll actually see going forward is they all have a pretty similar number of staff members, and the Gomorrah is actually on the lower end of that with just 28. For the purpose of simplicity, all staff members are going to be averaged out to the same wage. That goes all the way up to Big Sal and all the way down to the receptionist. When we get to the net profit at the end, you can assume that some of that gets chopped off and sent to the big dogs. The daily revenue for the Gomorrah ends up being an astounding 25,574 caps. Their average daily operational costs come out to only 2,258.5 caps per day, leaving them with an average daily net profit of 23,315.5 caps. And we can see on our handy dandy little pie chart that the vast majority of their earnings are coming from games and then their escort service. Everything else is peanuts. You might see the 77% of their overall revenue that casino games make up and think, why bother with everything else? It's so small in comparison, but you would be sorely mistaken. More sore than a Gomorrah whore. It's not just about peak efficiency. These casinos have to create an experience, and those escorts are a unique aspect of the Gomorrah experience, no matter how dark they are. Let's take Bill here, for example. Some of you may be familiar with him. He's our barely informed local life form. Bill gets word that the Gomorrah is the only casino in town with the escort service. He goes there, but then he quickly realizes, wait, there's not a lot of privacy in this situation. Let me get a room of my own. He gets a room at the Gomorrah. Now he spent a little bit more money. He gets done and he's worked up a bit of an appetite, so he heads down to the bar to get some food and a drink or two. Now that Bill has a couple drinks in him and the escort sure made him feel like a winner, he decides, what the heck, let me go hit the slot machines, maybe play a little blackjack, and before you know it, one guy has now spread his caps around all of the services that the Gomorrah has to offer. Maybe Bill even wins some caps. He feels like he hit it big and he thinks, what the heck, I have a room for the night. I might as well go back to that escort. I'm feeling good. And the cycle repeats. Even if all of the different services don't earn the same amount, and many of them don't earn much at all, it ends up creating a spider web of pleasure and temptation around the patrons of the casinos. And before you know it, Bill has been chewed up and spit out by the Strip. Now he's on his way back to his job at the sharecropper farms, where he's going to try and earn up enough money so he can do it all over again. Okay, I somehow made it out of the Gomorrah alive, and now I have to journey deeper into the Strip, where we'll find the Tops Casino. I feel a bit safer about this one. Now, something that's very strange and true about the Atomic Wrangler, the Gomorrah, and now here at the Tops is that they have way more staff than they do patrons. And the numbers I'm using are actually quite generous for the amount of patrons within these casinos, because I'm not just counting the ones that are in the casinos, I'm also counting those who are out wandering about on the Strip. Still, even at that, we can see the Atomic Wrangler has 14 staff members compared to 6 patrons. The Gomorrah has 28 staff members compared to 26 patrons. The Tops has 33 staff members compared to 16 patrons. It only begins to somewhat normalize when we look at the Ultra-Luxe, who has 31 staff to 61 patrons, or Vault 21, which has 1 staff member compared to 26 patrons. It's just quite strange that nearly half the casinos in the area have 2 staff members for every 1 guest they're bringing in. If you've ever been to real life Vegas, you know that couldn't be further from the truth. It's almost like this game was rushed or something. As I was walking around the tops, I couldn't help but notice this douchebag in a checkered coat had 4 guards around him alone, so that's not helping out your staffing issue. So as we can see, the tops is making a respectable 13,056 caps per day off of their gambling. Now the Gomorrah is making over 6,000 caps above what the tops is off of gambling, but that's not where I see a major issue with the tops. The 2 major issues with the tops are 1, wasted space, and 2, no secondary attraction. We do have the Aces and the Rad Pack, but they don't seem to charge people to come in and watch a show, and it also clearly isn't bringing in very many people. You will see they have earnings coming from the category of penthouses. I created this category for a specialty type room that would obviously go for much more than your standard room. The tops doesn't specifically have a penthouse. Actually, if we go outside, we can see it looks like they have a hole in their penthouse, and the building is falling apart. But they do have a presidential suite, so that's sort of their stand-in for a penthouse. But beyond that, if we go back here and look, there are so many inaccessible elevators. You just can't go up them. There are no rooms available. They even say out of order on some of the signs, so they're not earning any money off of those rooms. Perhaps parts of the building are just derelict and nobody's bothering to try and fix the place up. And did you guys know the Tops has a restaurant? I don't think I've ever been in this thing. In all of the time that I have played New Vegas, I don't think I've ever gone into the Tops restaurant. I was amazed to find this wasn't a part of some mod. And then once again, tying into the unused space with the elevators from earlier, if we go above where the restaurant sits, we can see we have this large balcony area, which is just full of tables for lounging and hanging out, perhaps socializing, but again, there's nobody here, and this space isn't being used to make any money. That's not where the issue ends though. We can see this continued out in their courtyard. Now when we go back to the Gomorrah's courtyard, we can see that it adds into their escort experience. You have all this tropical foliage and these exotic looking tents. It adds into that experience, but when we go back to the Tops, they just have a moderately sized pool with a diving board. A small one. There's not even a bar out here that could capitalize on trying to get some nice weather in the sun and having a drink. Yet again, we have that strange staff to guest ratio where who wants to let loose and have fun when a bunch of employees are just standing around staring at you? No one's even swimming or in their bathing suits. This is just wasted space making no money. And unsurprisingly, when we crunch the numbers, they're doing a lot worse than the Gomorrah is. They're making 15,356 caps per day, but then their operational costs are taking off 2,526, leaving them with 12,830. For reference, the Gomorrah is making 23,315 and a half caps per day. That means the Gomorrah is making more than 10,000 caps per day than the Tops is. I did not expect this, to be honest. I'm excited to get out of here because this place is strange how empty and lonely it feels. Honestly, they should pay some of their staff to just stand around in normal clothes so it looks like the place has more business than it does. Finally, I get to make my way over to what seems to be the jewel of the strip. This is the epitome of luxury in the Ultra-Luxe. Where the Gomorrah is for trash bags and the Tops is sort of middle of the road, the Ultra-Luxe is for those who want to feel special and spend a lot more money to do so. So rooms, drinks, eating, everything's going to be more expensive. Once again, I pop open the door, some guy asks me to give up all of my guns, I give him most of them, and then I begin wandering around the casino, but I notice something different. I can't believe my eyes. There's something so weird, so strange, something also empty, but it's not like the Tops where there are no people. There's actually a lot more people here. Something else is missing. I can't quite figure out what it is. I'm running all over the place looking for it, and then eventually I realize there are no slot machines in the Ultra-Luxe. I suppose in their effort of displaying high society, they got rid of the cheap slot machines. But what they forgot in that process perhaps is that is where money is made. I don't think you'd find a single big casino in Las Vegas that doesn't have slot machines. So the idea that the Ultra-Luxe is somehow too good for that is insane. I actually did find that the Four Seasons Hotel is a non-gaming casino on the Las Vegas Strip. But keep in mind, non-gaming. The Ultra-Luxe does have gambling occurring within it, just no slot machines. Instead of slot machines, you can find chessboards and books. So then when we look at their earnings, we can see they're making very, very little off of the gambling scene. The tops in Gomorrah were well in excess of 10,000 caps per day from their gaming. Hell, the Gomorrah was nearly at 20,000 caps per day, and here the Ultra-Luxe is sitting at 1,700. The surprising thing is, the majority of the Ultra-Luxe's income comes from their restaurant, the Gourmand. They're making more than 4 times what they do from gambling in this restaurant, but the problem is it comes at an expense. The Ultra-Luxe is bringing in over 9,000 caps per day from the Gourmand and their various bars. No other casino is even coming close to this, but there may be a reason for that when we look at the expenses from the food and drink, which is 3,355 per day for the Ultra-Luxe. This means that the net value for the Gourmand and their bars only comes in at 5,795. This doesn't even come close to making up what they gave up in slot machines. We can also see they have 600 caps a day coming in from their Penthouse, which is currently being rented by the Brahmin Baron Heck Gunderson and his crew. Much like the Tops restaurant, I have never been in this. I didn't even know it existed. And if you did know this existed, there's a good chance you're a cannibal. I'm not judging you, please don't eat me. Similar to the Tops having a pool, we can see that the Ultra-Luxe has a bathhouse. Now, at least this fits into their theme of luxury, so this could add to the overall experience of the Ultra-Luxe. I just think they're really dropping the ball by thinking they're too good for slot machines. I also found a ton of their staff just hanging out in this VIP area, oddly sitting around a table. I didn't know what to do. I felt like food all of a sudden, so I just decided to get out of there. So we can see the Ultra-Luxe is a weird one in more ways than one, way more ways than one. But specifically for our purposes, we can see the majority of their revenue comes from the restaurant, whereas it's usually coming from the gambling in other casinos. Usually where we're seeing the staff make up the majority of the costs for the casino, we can see that food and drink is the majority of it. And of the big three, we also see that the Ultra-Luxe has the least amount of revenue that it's bringing in. And to make matters worse, it has the highest amount of costs. So this means their net profit is below 7,000 caps per day at only 6,974 and a half. And don't ask me how you get a half cap. I've never found one, to be honest. I have to hurry up and scurry out of here before I turn into somebody's delicious Ranger steak, and I have one more place to check out before we do an overall comparison, and that's the Vault 21 gift shop and hotel. I'll be upfront with you here. Vault 21 is not making any money, but I think there's a reason Mr. House keeps this place around. This place is a discount hotel on the strip, so you can get a room here for 20 caps. If you can sweet talk Sarah, you can probably get it for 10 caps. That's not very relevant. Now we can find a couple table games down below, but obviously there's no staff to actually run these things or a banker to exchange chips with you if you did win. We can assume that these 208 caps are coming from Sarah's gift shop upstairs. It's the only gift shop on the entire strip. Regardless, some cheap rooms and a gift shop aren't going to offset the costs of keeping a vault operational, at least the parts that Mr. House hasn't filled with concrete. I'm not exactly sure why Mr. House didn't let the previous residents of Vault 21 just run this place as if it were another casino. Maybe he thought they would have been more intelligent than the tribal families and therefore more dangerous, or maybe they just didn't want to. Vault 21 ends up only earning 348 caps per day, and that might be a bit generous, and its total cost comes out to 452 caps, meaning this is our first location operating at a loss, and that loss would be minus 104 caps per day. The thing is, I think Mr. House is willing to subsidize this so that he can essentially pack more people into a storage bin who can't afford a room perhaps at one of the other casinos, but they'll still get up during the day or the night and go spend money at those casinos. So now that we have explored and inspected all of the casinos, we can finally get to comparing them. This is our revenue comparison, so that means that we're not considering the loss on operations, we're just looking at how much money or caps these casinos are bringing in. For all of the hotel and casino options in the area, we can see the Gomorrah has a titanic 47% of the earnings. They hold on to that number 1 spot by over 10,000 caps. Then in second place, we have the Tops, which makes up 28% of the total revenue. The Ultra-Luxe is below that at 23%. There's actually not too great of a difference between those two when it comes to revenue. And then the clear bottom two, of course, are the Atomic Wrangler, which at the very least, it's above one of the locations that's actually on the strip in Vault 21, which is bringing in 348 caps. Now when we shift our view over to only considering profit, so that's after the operational costs are removed, everything stays pretty much the same in terms of ranking, but things do change quite a bit in terms of percentage. Most notably within our big three, the Gomorrah shifts from having less than 50% at 47% to where we can see now it's jumped up to over 50% of the total net profits gained from the casinos. The Atomic Wrangler is rounded down to 0% and Vault 21 is obviously in the negatives, so it makes up no percentage at all of the earnings. The Tops jumps up 2%, so not a whole lot, but the big change here is the Ultra-Luxe dropping to only 16% of net earnings for the strip. So we see that despite them feeling all high and mighty and prestigious, they're clearly on the bottom end when it comes to earning caps. This doesn't change the fact that the strip is a cap-making machine. Of course, we're going to have to remove the Atomic Wrangler from our considerations here because they don't give money to the strip, but we can see that the strip's total revenue is over 53,000 caps per day. Their total costs are over 10,000 caps per day, but this brings their net profit per day to just over 43,000 caps. This means that Mr. House should be bringing in 15,695,000 caps per year. This means his employees have likely been shorting him 5,695,000 caps. I've got a good feeling Mr. House isn't going to be very happy when I turn this report in, but he will be pleased with our work. I'm more concerned with someone in the casino families looking for a rat, so I'm going to scurry out of town and take a vacation in Good Springs with the money I got paid for this job. Maybe I'll open up a coffee shop, try and put some of this business knowledge to use. Video game casinos probably won't help me run a coffee shop, but what will help me run a coffee shop is liking, commenting, and subscribing on this YouTube video. This is based on science and data. The coffee will come out more pure and delicious, and more people will walk in and give me money if you do those things. So do those things, or don't, because maybe I'm just trying to get you hooked on caffeine while I'm the only coffee shop in the entire wasteland. Before you know it, I'll be charging 20 bucks for a gross watery coffee and you'll be stuck in my shop eating gabagool. Anyways, here's a similar video I made about Skyrim's taverns, and there's probably another video here that's surely a good use of your time. I'll see you in the comments.